Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to a very special Steelers preview podcast. It is the preview of a playoff game. I don't think, Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, we've had a Steelers preview podcast for a playoff game yet because you weren't even with the website. Am I right?
This is my first postseason game with the Pittsburgh Steelers with Behind the Steel Curtain.
That's exciting. I'm really excited. It was something about today. I don't know what it was. I got started to get really excited. And you might be sitting here, whether you're listening or watching, saying, Dave's there, Jeff's there, where's Bryan? Having some technical difficulties. He's going to be joining us shortly. Don't worry, he will be here. We figured we can cover the news for him. He's always on the news. He knows what's going on. But hey, let's get to the news. A lot of news happened this week. Okay? 4 players for the Steelers came back in one way or the other. Now, I know that Robert Spillane and Matthew Filer are not technically back yet. They just started the clock, and they're going to have to be taken off the injured reserve at some point. They have 3 weeks to do so. I don't think anyone's expecting them to use 3 weeks. Okay, then Eric Ebron and Cassius Marsh, they come off the COVID-19 reserve list. Which pair, in your opinion, Dave, is more important? Thinking about everything, thinking about whether they're going to play or not, thinking about whether because I personally don't know if Spillane or Filer is just going to be injected right into the starting lineup. Which is more important pair, in your opinion?
That's extremely difficult because if you look at it as both players, I would say Spillane and Filer. But if you were only going to pick one, I would say Ebron. Because when it comes to Cassius Marsh, don't even know if he's going to get the helmet as the other outside linebacker special teamer. It'll probably be down between him and Jaron Elliott. Not totally sure. So when you're talking about, one that's way up and one that's down, and then the other two they're there. I really upset Matty P today. If you saw that,
there's a lot of stuff going on
because he was talking about, Kevin Dotson. I'm like, whether I agree with it or not, chances are if Matt Filer's back, they put Matt Filer right back where he is at left guard, and Kevin Dotson goes to the bench.
If he's fully healthy. If he's fully healthy.
Yeah, I'm not saying I agree with that. I would like even just a week of saying, hey, Filer, you're working your way back. We want to use you as a reserve. You're good for 4 spots on the line. Let's just keep it how it was last week, with the exception of Marquise Pouncey, and we're good to go. I just don't know that that's what we're going to do. We don't know. Will they even activate him? I'm sure they are planning on it, but will they?
I definitely expect Spillane. Tomlin talked about Spillane leading up to week 17.
Yeah.
And then I thought they might get him into practice situations before the Browns game in week 17. He didn't. I fully expect Spillane back. I'm not sure about Filer. I wouldn't be shocked if Filer is not taken off injured reserve this week. I wouldn't be shocked at all.
Well,
you want an early bold prediction?
Okay.
Cassius Marsh might not even be on the Steelers come Sunday.
Okay.
They could cut him. They're going to have to cut players. They're going to have to waive some players.
They may. They're one player under right now, even with the 2 guys coming back.
Because of the COVID call-ups,
right? Yeah. Now, but remember, you still have Joe Hayden that will need to come back the following week should the Steelers still be playing, which bold prediction. I'm going to say we have another preview next week. That's my bold prediction. Okay. So, but right now they have 52 because of the way it works. If you actually go to Steelers.com, and there's Bryan, if you go to Steelers.com and you count up, you'll actually probably count 54 because they haven't technically moved Deion Kane and Anthony Coyle back to the practice squad, although that's where they reverted back. I mean, I think they protected one of them this week, so they obviously have to be back on the practice squad. So they have a spot for one more person without cutting anybody. But I think you're right. Guys like Cassius Marsh, especially doing the COVID thing, that might be one of those things. I don't know how much longer Gray Scales will be with the Steelers if they need that spot. Those are a couple guys. Other than that, you really don't want to expose anyone else to waivers.
Well, and let's be honest here. Let's say Spillane and Filer come back and they're able to play this Sunday. Even if they're not starters, they provide really good depth at positions of need because Filer can play both guard and tackle. Spillane, not only a good special teams player, but he's also going to be able to spell Avery Williamson or Vince Williams, whichever they need. He's more athletic than both. He, at least before his knee injury, was faster than both. And that's not saying much, but still, it's an improvement. We welcome Bryan Anthony Davis to the show. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Hey, fellas, thanks for having me. Glad to be a guest. Boy, they're laughing because I had a whole freak out before we came on. I'd rather me say it than they say it. I got this brand new microphone set up. I was all proud of it. I got it for Christmas. And then right before we were ready to go on, it just collapsed on me. And so I don't handle adversity sometimes well when my wife tells me that. And so I went a little crazy. But I listen to everything you're saying, guys. And it's great to have both of these guys back, both of these pairs back. I really think that the guys that have been healthy and in the lineup, like Ebron and even, Cassius Marsh, he plays well on special teams. I think that's kind of, those guys have been ingrained in what's been going on. And those are the guys that I'm looking for to go ahead and build on what they have. Now, like you mentioned, like Dave mentioned, that caused all the controversy. I think he was absolutely correct because I was going to call him Bruce Arians, excuse me. That guy, Randy Land, he came out and said, it would be too much to try to move these guys around right now, right before the playoffs, put Filer back at left tackle to keep Dots in here. So I think they might try to ease those guys in because they're coming off of injury and give the other guys a chance to continue to play. And if you need a lifeline, maybe you pull one of those guys in. But for right now, I think they go with the guys that have been starting. If anybody gets more of a chance to play, it would be Spillane over Filer, I would think, going into this week.
Now, the other news of the week is the Cleveland Browns, and this is the third go-around with the Pittsburgh Steelers facing an opponent that are dealing with COVID issues. The issues at some points, for instance, I think it was Wednesday, they had no positive tests. Everyone thought, okay, good. Seems like the worst is behind us. And then, nope. Thursday comes around, and it was Dave, correct me in the name, the safety, Harrison?
Yes.
He tests positive.
Ronnie.
Yes,
Yeah.
Ronnie Harrison tests positive. He's out this weekend for sure.
Along
now,
with the practice squad player.
Practice squad player, yeah.
Yeah.
Now the NFL is saying that there was some, player-to-player transmission. Now we're looking at a potential outbreak. They're saying Friday could be, this was from Dr. David Sills I saw. I think it was from Tom Pelissero, the NFL Network. There are people in the live chat right now asking, is the game going to get postponed? Correct me if I'm wrong, Dave or Bryan. I have not seen any news from the NFL stating that they are talking about moving the game.
No.
The NFL has always said, and the perfect example of this is the Denver situation when they were hosting the Saints in the regular season. They will not move a game for competitive reasons. They will only move a game if it is not deemed to be safe for the players, coaches, staff, etc. And so that's why Tennessee Titans game got moved. That's why the Baltimore Ravens game got moved. As of right now, if they don't deem it's going to be an outbreak and could be a potential risk for anyone else, they're going to play the game. And the Browns have not practiced yet this week. Like, think about that. Guys, how big of a deal is that? Bryan, we'll start with you.
Well, Baker Mayfield says it doesn't matter, but it really does. They have to, before the playoffs, they have to practice as a team. It puts them at a disadvantage. Now, I realize that back in week 4, going into week 5, when Tennessee pulled their shenanigans, they had a whole lot of time. Even though they didn't have a lot of practices, they had a whole lot of time. These guys don't have time to go ahead and practice at all. Tennessee and even the Ravens, they got some practices in before the game. This is a complete disadvantage for the Browns, and it's one that I don't want to say they brought upon themselves, but if it becomes an outbreak, then something has happened to lend to it, which means that they've got to face that adversity and go through that. Not having their head coach is even tougher.
We're going to get to that. Don't steal the thunder. We're going to get to that.
I won't. But when you don't have that and you don't practice, this is a recipe for disaster.
Dave, not practicing an issue for you at the National Football League level, or no?
You mean Is there a disadvantage? I mean, there's a
Well, I
disadvantage.
mean, like at high school, kids don't practice. They're going to look awful because they're just not that good. In the NFL level, if they don't practice, and I think they will get at least one practice in, does it matter, or are these guys good enough they can wing it?
Well, I mean, I do remember one Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger not being able to practice at all before the Cincinnati Bengals game, and he came out and looked pretty good in that one.
BTR is a different beast, though.
Yes,
yeah. I mean, he goes weeks without practicing.
But here's the other thing you got to remember: they're holding these virtual practices, so they're working on game plan, and you're like, oh, really? Does that really help a lot? Yes, it does. And think about it: if they do practice, they're missing. Don't want to steal the thunder. A lot of coaches, but during virtual practices, they're not. So that's just something else to think about and remember. I mean, you can't say it's not a big deal, but in my opinion, well, first of all, these players haven't been in contact with each other since Sunday, and it's not like they traveled. It was a home game. So I did not hear anything else with the contact tracing with these guys today. I know they were doing it, and then I didn't hear anything else of anyone else going on the list. So that should tell me, hopefully, that there's nothing else with that. But we know how it works. I think, I'll be honest with you, I'm going to throw it out to you guys. I think the reason they're kind of tentatively setting this whole notion of Friday, can you push one playoff game back, or do you just have to push back the whole thing?
What do you mean?
Can you just have one playoff game not being played this weekend and being played later on? To me, you'd have to push the whole wild card weekend.
Absolutely.
There's no way. If they were to say, we're going to move the Steelers and Browns to Monday, you would have to change the entire schedule for the rest of the playoffs because you cannot punish the Steelers for something that they didn't do. And that's if the Steelers win. I'm not going to say anything like that. But I mean,
if the Bills win against the Colts, then they would be hosting the Steelers, and they play on Saturday. So you're already talking about they're gonna have an extra day anyway, and then you're going, if that's the matchup, and then you're going to add another one or two or whatever on top of that. That's not. Let's just say it, that you can't do that to a team in the playoffs, regardless of who wins the game, unless they're worried about continued spread throughout the locker room of the Browns. I know some people say, well, what about the Steelers? On any level, from what I understand, worldwide, there has not been transmission from one team to another during a sporting event. So the concern isn't as much. I mean, of course, you want to be careful when it comes to things with the Steelers, but the bigger concern is within the Browns organization itself. I mean, what happens if they win that game and then all of a sudden, boom, they're out 25 players?
Yeah. I mean, to me, I think about the not practicing, and if they didn't have all these players that were missing, I don't think it would be that big of a deal because they played football their whole lives. Like you said, they're doing all the virtual meetings, they're planning. But when it comes to the fact that, they're missing Batonio, is that his name? The guard. Mm-hmm. They're already, we mentioned Harrison. They're out at least one wide receiver. The other one's in concussion protocol. He's probably not going to play. They're down. Obviously, OBJ's not in the lineup. Denzel Ward, is he able to come back this Sunday? I can't remember.
It's still a possibility, depending on how his tests and everything have gone, which they can't disclose. So if he comes off right when he's allowed to, he can. But not everyone comes off.
They have a lot of issues right now. And like you said, the coaches and the coaching staff, it's not just Stefanski, it's their offensive line coach. It's, I think, a couple other coaches. Let's go to this, because I'm going to be honest with you all here. And I said this to Bryan when I saw him yesterday. When I heard the news that Stefanski tested positive and he wasn't going to be on the sideline Sunday, I was like, that stinks. That's going to play a role. I mean, he makes decisions. And then I found out, because I didn't know he was their play caller. I didn't know that he was the guy calling in the plays. And then all of a sudden, I totally changed my tune. It was, wow. I mean, this is incredible. This makes a big difference. It's not like Mike Tomlin. Let's call a spade a spade. If Mike Tomlin were to test positive, he's not calling offense or defensive plays. He's making the final judgment call on certain situations. But for the most part, that's on Randy Fiedner or Matt Canada. That's on Keith Butler. The Steelers would be able to survive, I think. Guys, how big of a deal is it? Because in my mind, it's a pretty big deal. How big of a deal is not having Kevin Stefanski on the sideline calling plays this Sunday night? Bryan, go ahead.
It goes from a thing of perfection and perfect execution to, all right, Kevin would have done this. Maybe we should try this, because he cannot coach virtually. He's not allowed to call. He is not allowed to call into them whatsoever. Now he's allowed to coach this week, but virtually. But he cannot, during that game, he cannot have any contact with them whatsoever on Sunday, because then there would be an advantage. There'd be way too much of an advantage, because if he's watching stuff on TV and seeing stuff that the announcers are seeing and seeing a different view, and they could have a complete competitive advantage. So that's one of the reasons that they would not let him in there. You cannot coach remotely. So the fact that you have Alex Van Pelt, who is, I know he's not the acting head coach, but he was supposed to be calling plays in preseason, but lo and behold, there's no preseason. So he didn't get a chance to do it. So it became one of those things that Kevin Stefanski is like, okay, this is my system that I'm putting in. You don't have time to practice calling these plays, so I'll do it this season. And that's basically what happened here. So this is something that Kevin Stefanski has been mentioned this week throughout the whole process as one of the best guys on the fly as far as play calling. He is very adaptable as far as what to run. So now they've got to do what would Kevin do. And that becomes a completely different story. They're trying to think like he would think. They're trying to do a job that they haven't really done all year. And trying to do that for the first time in the playoffs in a playoff game is pretty tough.
Dave, what about you? The impact of Stefanski not being on the sideline calling plays.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal because he calls the plays. Like you said, until you found out he called the offensive plays, it was like, yeah, you kind of, the biggest thing you want to see your head coach is a delegator. But when you're the head coach and you're the one also calling the offensive plays, how, let's just use it since our resident Kansas City fans in the live chat, what would happen if it was someone like Andy Reid, who also calls the plays? But they also have someone like Eric Bieniemy, who is the coordinator, who is interviewing for head coaches and things out there. I don't think Van Pelt's ever done this before. So that's going to be, who knows? Has he ever called plays on any level before? Because he's not that old and hasn't been around all that long. And I'm pretty sure did he go to college coaching first, or did he come right into the NFL after his time? If he's never, imagine being your very first time ever calling plays, and it's for a team that has gone 18 seasons without being in the postseason, and it's their first playoff game in that long. So maybe just a little bit of pressure on him.
See, I don't see it as much as like I know, Brian, you brought up some really good points. Like, what would Kevin do? Like that, those are really good points. I see this as more of you're the coach that's in the quarterback's ear now. Are you slow or getting the play call to him? Are you hesitating? Is Baker Mayfield doing this on the sidelines? I don't understand you, or I can't pick up the pace. Are they calling timeouts? Are they getting a delay of game penalty because that transmission is not as smooth as it usually is? I see that as being a bigger factor to me than the actual plays themselves. But I could be wrong. I think Stefanski, he's a good coach. You can't deny that. He's going to have a plan together. He's going to have a plan together for sure. All right. Bryan, you gave us the headline for this podcast. Why don't you say what that is, and we'll talk about that briefly?
Sure. I would be glad to do that. If I could remember what the headline is.
I was going to say, hold on.
So I've got it here.
Bryan, I'll give you a minute to figure it out because I got to ask Jeff a question.
I do have it. But
Jeff,
yeah.
I'm thinking of a movie. I can't think of it. Maybe it was a TV show where it was a dad or a guy that was he was trying to do like a beach chair at the beach, and it wouldn't open and it wouldn't function right. And he's sitting there flipping around with the beach chair, and maybe it was an episode of Mr. Bean or something like that.
That was John Candy.
Or maybe it was flipping around for forever, and he finally gets it set up, and then he sits in it and he collapses. That's what we were witnessing off the screen with when Brian Anthony Davis. Yeah. That's why I laughed when he came on, because there's just all this stuff flipping around the screen, going crazy. And then he comes in just calm, cool, collected, ready to roll. Hey, Brian, what's the title?
Yeah, what is the title of this episode?
It is this. Just how much did the Week 17 loss help the Steelers for the rematch with Cleveland? And that's basically lending to the fact that Cleveland had to win that game. So they had to put everybody out there. The Steelers will not completely resemble the team that was out there in week 17, while Cleveland is going to resemble them pretty well, with the exception of the losses that just came out this week. So is Cleveland facing a completely different team? And Pittsburgh just saw their opponent a week ago and could scout so much better.
That's a good question. Dave, you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, I was saying this going into the game. I wanted to see the Steelers with Mason Rudolph just run a completely different offense. Don't make Mason runs Ben offense. Just put something all new in for the week, because one, you're not showing anything that you plan on doing in the playoffs, and two, if it works really well, then teams have to ask, kind of like everything going on with the Josh Dobbs thing. Do we have to prepare for this now? And I mean, and Coach Tomlin has done the right thing of not saying, kind of leaving open the possibility of having Josh Dobbs active to come in and run some of these plays, just to make the other team have to do that. So the Steelers, by basically saying we're resting our guys, they didn't. It's not that they didn't want to win the game week 17. Their focus was being healthy, and it looks like as much as possible they are going to be healthy for this game. Yeah. I mean, we can't talk about guys that were lost for the season weeks ago. So mission accomplished there. And therefore, the Steelers knew they were going to get the Browns' best. And now they're going to have to get the Browns' best again this week. It is very, very similar. I think Brian's exactly right with this.
I think that week 17 showed the Steelers that, the Browns were obviously they're a good enough team to make the postseason. Double-digit wins, first time making the playoffs since 2002. The Browns are going to be a different team, and so are the Steelers in the playoffs. I mean, you think that no Olivier Vernon, that's a big deal for this Browns defense. Now no Ronnie Harrison. You're going to be short-handed at the wide receiver position. Your offensive line, it's a third or fourth string guard going against a fresh Cam Hayward. I mean, think about that. That's going to be big. So if they have to double team Cam the whole time, that means that Tuitt, Watt, or Highsmith are going to have one-on-one matchups. I think it was the headline of the Know Your Enemy podcast, where it literally is like two different teams playing 1 week after they just played, because the Steelers with Roethlisberger and Pouncey, Hayward, and TJ Watt, that makes a big deal. And I had to answer some questions from the Dogs by Nature editor, and he asked me, like, how big of a deal is this? It's a big deal. Mason Rudolph did throw for 315, and that's great, but he's not Ben Roethlisberger. We know this. Brian, what do you think about it?
Well, I'm laughing because that was my headline too, and so I'm on this kick with just the fact that last week, like I said, they're different. You just said how different they are with these guys out. But here's the thing. That's a disadvantage that these guys are out. They scouted the team and the system last week. I know they're going to try to do things different. How much different can they really do them now without Stefanski in there? They might have to rely on the stuff that they've done in the past. They might not be able to be as innovative. They could be with him not on the sidelines on Sunday, but I think it's a complete disadvantage too for Cleveland. Pittsburgh, like I said, they didn't have to show any hands. They didn't have to show too much of anything whatsoever. Like you said about Josh Dobbs, that could be a thing that is put back in the drawer and you don't see again. I mean, they could go to the Super Bowl. Say the Steelers go to the Super Bowl. You might not see that again the entire time because that was brought out for that game. But like Dave said, it's on people's minds now. So there's so many things that the Steelers can do here, and they've got a little bit of an advantage because while we saw Olivier Vernon and he's gone, they didn't see TJ Watt and he's back. And with all those other players that we're talking about. So that's where it becomes an advantage. Now, I want to invoke another headline that was not mine, it was Dave's. And Dave's was, be careful of getting too complacent and getting too confident, because what did you say? A wounded dog?
Yeah. Beware the wounded dog.
Yeah. There you go.
Because they got nothing to lose and everything to fight for.
Well, I would be worried about that if the Steelers would have won in Week 17. If they would have found a way to come back and win, and they beat them twice, you got to beat them 3 times, and you're going to have them at home. I feel like there would be a little sense of complacency. I'm not sure that's the case. But I'll tell you what, before we take our first break, Dave, you have the injury report up?
That's probably something that I should have, and I do have it up now, yes.
Very good. Okay, let's run down the injury report. Let's talk about that briefly. Then we'll take a break. When we come back from that break, we're going to talk about X factors, predictions. We're going to do something new for this upcoming game. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, so for the Steelers injury report, if you paid attention to Wednesdays, there were some things that were worried. Boswell was just limited. Steven Nelson was limited with the knee. Tyson Alualu and Vince Williams did not practice with injuries. Every single person who missed any kind of time on Wednesday was full on Thursday. The only people that missed Thursday were players new to the injury report, which was Isaiah Buggs with an illness, but the big one was Juju Smith-Schuster with the knee. Now, Juju Smith-Schuster missed an awful lot of Wednesday practices the first part of the season with a knee injury. And there was even one time when he missed Wednesday and Thursday. So this is one of those injuries that you're like, I don't like to see it. But at the same time, one, it's the postseason. And two, it's not something that we haven't seen before. That maybe it's like, oh, let's give Juju off Thursday so he's only got one day of practice on that knee and not back-to-back days before we go. Maybe that was it. I don't know. I'm hoping we get good news tomorrow. As for the Browns injury report, it's just an estimation because they haven't practiced for 2 days, so it's almost not worth it.
Well, the concussion is worth it to me because the fact that receiver is on, and everyone thought it was a back injury, but it turned out it was the whiplash of that hit from Sean Davis gave. What is that gentleman's name? Did you have that?
Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Peoples-Jones, the People's Court. All right, so when you look at the Steelers, out of those injuries, you talk about Boswell with the groin. That can creep up on you. I mean, you talk about Juju's knee. You talk about you could even mention Vince Williams' quad or the knee of Steven Nelson. Which injury is the one where you're saying keep an eye on this one for Friday? Because remember, this is being recorded Thursday night, so we don't know the Friday injury report regardless of when you're listening to it. Bryan, which injury for the Steelers are you like really – this is a big one?
Gosh, I'm looking right now. I still think it's Juju.
Okay.
I really think that, that with him not practicing, I just think he's a guy that does all the little stuff like the Hines Ward stuff that helps enable the other receivers. So to me, I think that's a huge deal right now.
What about you, Dave?
Well, I'm just because Bryan said Juju, I'm going to take Boswell.
Yep.
With the limited coming back to full. This was almost like probably more of a test day than anything to then see how he is tomorrow. You have to have him go full to see how he rolls. And it's not really as much as the field goals because as we saw, the extremely accurate Matthew Wright had the kicks from more of a distance. He hit the 246 yarders. I would feel confident, with him now, if you get him within 45, I think he's money. And you could even try a 50-yarder if you need to. The biggest thing, I mean, we'll see. You don't want him to overkick. I mean, the ones you kick from 46 would have been good from 50.
Yeah, I think you might have had some.
But when you're knowing that it's 50, you might have a tendency to overkick. The biggest thing is actually the kickoffs. Yes. He is like Matthew Wright is rated extremely low on PFF with his kickoffs because he can't get it in the touchdown zone. He can't do the touchback. When the Steelers
he doesn't get it high enough. Like everyone thinks about Justin Tucker. Like Justin Tucker can kick it really high, and it doesn't get in the end zone, but it gives his coverage team a unit to get down there and make a play and pin them deep. Yep. Wright's kicking it as hard as he can.
He's got to drive that at the 45-degree angle, doesn't get the height on it, and it still doesn't get there just to try to get as deep as possible, which means those guys are getting a run and start and are flying upfield before they hit any Steelers. And I know sometimes you're like, where's the coverage? It's because the kick got down there low, and it's just how it works.
Yeah. I was going to say Boswell. You said that. I'm going to pull a Bryan Anthony Davis. I'm going to think outside the box here. Okay, there's my box. I'm outside it. And I'm, hey, absence makes the heart grow fonder. That's a very common phrase. And I'm talking about how someone that missed last week with a shoulder injury, you kind of missed him, Mr. Terrell Edmonds. How often did we think we would be saying we're missing Terrell Edmonds? Sean Davis looked like hot garbage out there. And people wonder, where's Sean Davis? Like, we got Sean Davis back from Washington. Where is he? Well, he's not good. That's why he's probably not playing. Maybe he's not used to playing.
It's a good backup if you don't have to use him.
It's a good backup. You don't have to use him. Yeah, but he's basically a special teamer now. And
maybe here's some tweets coming from Sean Davis.
Oh boy. Hopefully Lustin Jane didn't hear that. Anyways, so still, like, Sean Davis has his moments, but he also has plenty of gaffes at the same time. And Terrell Edmonds, believe it or not, this season has not had many gaffes. Okay, he's played a very, very good defensive back this season. His safety, this is the best year of his career by far, and that's what you expect. You expect to see. I'm going to say Terrell Edmonds coming back into the lineup is going to be a big deal, especially in run support, especially covering tight ends like Njoku, who's still a threat. Keep an eye for that. So there you go. All right. We're going to take a quick break. If you're watching live on Facebook or on YouTube, we're not going anywhere, so don't go anywhere. But if you're on our audio side, head over to part 2. We're going to talk about X Factors, predictions, trivia, over-under, you name it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to the second part of the Steelers preview podcast. We are joined by Dave Schofield, the other co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, our podcast producer, Bryan Anthony Davis, who's giggling like a schoolgirl right now. And I'm Jeff Hartman.
Dave giggling, and I started giggling. He was trying to hold it back.
I can't remember who said it. I was told that during the break, my eyes pierced their soul. So someone said that before. So I tried to give more of a soul piercing
the soul. The soul, not the skull.
Soul. That's Hey, Jeff, before we get started, can I say something?
Sure.
You mentioned the People's Court.
Uh-huh.
I got to tell you, I know this is way off comment, way off. But my cousin was on the People's Court in the first season. Big Steeler fan, by the way, and watched their show. She was the plaintiff, and she won. Nice. And my uncle, my beloved uncle, who helped get me into the Steelers along with my dad, he was yelled at by Judge Wapner. So he's since passed. But yeah, so there you go. I had to bring
this is up. Where if we were, if I had the graphic, a little star would shoot across the screen and the tail would say, "The more you know." All right, so let's get right down to this. Let's get down to brass tacks, as they would say. I want to approach this game in a little bit different. We normally start with the X factors. We're going to do that. I want to spend some time, and this is the playoffs, guys. I mean, we haven't had a Steelers preview with the three of us for a playoff game. Like we were just talking when Bryan was having his difficulties at the beginning of the show. Dave has never been a part of a playoff game as a part of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. So what I wanted to do is questions that I usually ask the other editor for the other site. Here's my question. How do you think if you're, I hate to say, if you're Randy Fiedner, okay, so put yourself in his shoes. Okay. If you're drawing up an offensive game plan against this Browns team, okay, what does it look like for this playoff game Sunday night at Heinz Field? You're trying to this is not just the first 10 plays. This isn't the opening script. You're putting together a game plan. Here's how we want to attack this defense. What does it look like, Bryan? Go ahead and start.
Well, if I'm Randy Fiedner, I go get a pizza and I say, Ben, cover me for 3 hours. That's really what needs to be done here. You know what? That's the thing. You draw up the first 15 plays, and this is what we get. And that's what happens with this offensive coordinator that we have. So I think I change everything. You basically, you take the book of Randy. If you're Randy, you take your book and all your notes, and you just leave it on the ski lift or wherever you are, or leave it at Hardee's or Arby's or wherever you go throughout the day. And you just think about what has worked in the second half when we've had to come back in games. What has worked there? And start it early. Look, if you can have that second half game plan against the Colts on offense, why can't you put that in the first half? And really, I know so many people could poke holes in that theory, but why not? Why can't your scripted plays look at it that way? And say, all right, we've got to be ultra aggressive coming out and not just go, okay, we have to run on second down because that's what we do. No, just completely, like Dave always says, when he invokes the water boy and Dan Fouts, hey, Can't lay anything on the table. Or last game of the season. There you go.
Back.
Can't hold anything back.
All right, Dave, what about you? What's your offensive game plan look like for this playoff game?
Okay, I'm going to think outside the box here because there's no way the Steelers do this, but I would love to see this. And it's just a little something that that the casual fan might not notice. And that is every play for your first scripted plays. I don't care if it's 10, 15 plays. Run a different formation, meaning with your personnel. Sometime put Deontay in the X. Then you turn around, put Claypool in the X. Don't put the same receiver in the same formation with the exact same set. If you're running 11 personnel, switch up who your receivers are, switch up where they're lining up, change it up so much that they're like, we don't know what we're doing. We've never seen this before. Just to make them start to think, because I want to see how the defense would respond for having to think, because as we know, if you make the Cleveland Browns offense and the leader of that offense have to think about what you're doing, that's when you can get the advantage. So I say just try to do something to make them think a little bit more.
When I'm reading the live chat, as I brought up Randy Fietner, and of course they're saying, "Have Randy stay home, take the batteries out of his headset." It reminds me of the critically acclaimed 1993 film Rookie of the Year, when Daniel Stern, who's the pitching coach, gets stuck in the clubhouse. I don't know what you call it, where they keep the seeds and stuff.
The cage, yeah.
He's in the cage. He's trying to go I feel like that's Randy Fietner. They're like, well, something happened to Randy. If I'm Randy, if I'm drawing up the game plan, it's exactly what Bryan said. Go back to the second half in week 16 against the Colts. What did they do differently that they hadn't been doing in the previous 4 games? And they were using the intermediate and the middle parts of the field. I don't know what changed with the Colts. Obviously, Kevin Smith did a great job breaking that down and how they switched out of their coverages, but still, they have to be able to put the ball down. They have to move the ball down the field. And these short little passes can work, but only if you're running the ball and if you're actually connecting deep. That's why we saw in week 17, Mason Rudolph, heck, he was throwing up some jump balls to Chase Claypool. Give him a chance. What's the worst case that happens? It's incomplete, or maybe he draws a defensive pass interference. I think that the offense is going to have to look a little bit different. But last question on the offense, guys. I don't think it's going to happen, but do you expect a trick play? I mean, this is the playoffs, and this is what, if you think back to the Wisenhunt and the Malarkey days, you always could expect a trick play at a big moment. They haven't done one all year. Do you think they've been saving one up? Bryan, what do you think?
I'd like to think that they are. That's my heart says, oh man, I hope they are. I'd love to think that'd be awesome if they would do that and do that now. My head says, hey, it's Randy. And, sometimes I don't expect, that's one of the things that I don't really expect from Mike Tomlin either. Mike Tomlin is more of, okay, let's go ahead and do our jobs and not try to fool anybody. And sometimes I'd like to see him fool them. So would I like to see the old throw back to Ben and then Cedric Wilson's wide open? Yeah, if we have to bring back Cedric Wilson, let's do it.
I think his son's in the NFL now. Dave?
Yeah, he is. He actually.
Dave, you think his trick plays coming up?
Nope.
No.
No,
they haven't even tried one.
And here's why. When do the Steelers run trick plays some of the times? Why did the Steelers have trick plays run against them? That's when you're big underdogs. The Steelers haven't been the only time they were a big underdog all season was week 17 when they were 10-point underdogs to the Browns. And I thought maybe they would do it then. I think their version of trick plays was Josh Dobbs coming on the field. That's their version of trick plays.
Or the Wildcat.
You know what I'm saying? That's it. So, I mean, honestly, you could say we saw the Steelers version of trick plays early in the season when Chase Claypool was rushing for touchdowns because they were giving him the ball on those sweeps that everyone is now knows that they're coming because they run. If you run the exact same formation, do the exact same thing, to run the exact same play, anytime the defense sees it, they're going to call out your play because they know that's what's coming. So that's why those don't work anymore. So that was their version of trick plays. I don't see anything extreme like that because I saw someone else said save it for later in the playoffs. Maybe that's what they do. But, I mean, I hope you don't need a trick play against Cleveland Browns. I just hope they come out and ram it down their throats and be done right off the bat and just take it to them.
See, yeah, I say like I hope they don't need a trick play, but when you think about the trick plays in the past, like you talked about the pass back to Ben against Cincinnati in 2005, where he hit Cedric Wilson down the sideline. You think about, heck, I was watching the 2002 game against the Browns in the snow in the wild card game at Heinz Field, and after Chris Fumatu Ma'afala scored the touchdown, the go-ahead touchdown, it was a reverse to Randall L, I think, or maybe it was just a Randall L pass to Jeremy Tooman for a 2-point conversion. They just have had so many wrinkles in the offense. I kind of miss that. I'll just put it that way. I don't think they're going to run a trick play. But let's go to the other side of the football. Defensively, the Steelers' defense. What's the approach? Because it's definitely changed a little bit. What's the approach going against Baker Mayfield sucks and the boys? Go ahead, Bryan.
Just get in Baker's head, and it's not hard to do. I mean, actually, you could probably, I'm easily distracted. I bet you Baker is too. I mean, we might share the same attention span. I would tell you that. And I bet you can just put a picture of a squirrel up there and show it to Baker, and he'll be like, ah. And so that's really what they need to do. Just rattle him, knock him around. Next thing you know, Mink is going back for 6.
I hope so. Dave, what do you think?
Ditto. I mean, he just completely, that's Baker Mayfield's head is I told Jeff, I said, I'm going to say that's the X factor. I'm not really going to do that this time. That if you can get inside the head of Baker Mayfield, I mean, they did it the first game. I mean, think about this. How many passing yards did the Steelers have against the Browns when they beat them 38-7?
It's probably less than 200.
It was 148 passing yards.
Yeah, I win.
So it's everyone's like, oh, Ben's going to come out and throw the ball. I hope he doesn't have to. I hope that they just come out. I could see this being where this is where the defense is the one doing their thing. That there's one big thing you have to worry about. I'm not worried about Baker Mayfield. I said it the first time they played the Browns, I'd rather see Baker Mayfield than Case Keenum. But the one person that I don't want to see a lot of is one Nick Chubb.
Yep.
And that's where I was going to go with this, is that you have to stop. You have to stop the run. If you want to do anything, it's get a lead, and you have to force the ball into Mayfield's hands. Absolutely. That's when you can get in his head, because if they can run the football, that's when they're dangerous, because that's when they run play action. They get him out on the edge with their bootlegs. Now, I think the Steelers are going to do plenty of damage with Baker Mayfield, but if he doesn't have to throw, they can't do any damage. That's the most important thing. It does seem like, and maybe this was just a week 17 thing, they do give Nick Chubb plenty of time to rest. They give him a full series, sometimes maybe even 2, and they put in Kareem Hunt. Now, Kareem Hunt is still a really good running back, but he's not Nick Chubb. So I'm not sure if that's routine for them. I don't watch the Browns a lot. I'm not trying to, put that type of punishment on myself. So I don't know if Chubb is normally the guy he's just going to, Chubb's going to run the ball until Hunt comes in to give him a break. I don't know if that's the way they do it, but the Steelers need to stop the run. That's the most important. So let's go to the X factors now. We're talking about the defense. We'll stick with defense first. The defensive X factor for the Steelers. Bryan, what's yours?
Well, it's easy for me to go. Every time we go up against a running team, I'm saying Vince Williams, but I'm not going to do that. It's too predictable, and I don't want to be like Randy. I don't want to be too predictable. So I'm thinking more that the X factor this week is more of Minka. I think he is kind of the guy that, he comes up, he does help out during the run. You do have help with Edmonds, also with the run too, as far as Chubb goes. But I think we just talked about getting into Baker Mayfield's head. I really think that Mink is the kind of guy that can swing this game. They've got some guys hurt at wide receiver. I just think I just don't think that passing game is going to thrive, and Minka could disrupt so many things. So I'm going to go number 39.
All right, Dave, who's your defensive X factor?
All right, I'm going to give a weird Bryan Anthony Davis answer.
Here we go. And
I'm going to say Joe Hayden.
Yes,
who's not playing in the
game.
No, because it's whoever's playing in place of Joe Hayden.
It'll be Sutton.
Would say Sutton, but the question is, when they go into sub packages, are they sliding Sutton back into his extra safety role and putting someone else on the outside?
Here's the question for you, Dave.
That's what I don't know.
Well, no,
I can't say which player is the X factor. It's whoever is in that outside corner role where Joe Hayden should be.
When you think about it, though, how often do you think the Steelers will be in dime in this game against the Browns, who like to run the football a lot? I feel like they'll be in nickel a bunch, in which case Sutton wouldn't be on the field. That's Hilton. Mm-hmm. Sutton might be outside more than you think. So maybe we'll see.
That would be good.
That would be really good.
Playing with a lead, then
that's
you take the run out of the game, then you still have to worry about that. But then you're playing with a lead, so then that way you're you know, I'm not going to complain about, oh no, they have to go dime.
Well, if they put out Lustin Jane, then we will know a lot about Lustin Jane, and maybe I can talk about him on Twitter again without being bombarded in my DMs. Okay, I'm going to go with Cam Hayward because Cam Hayward has had a week off. He should be fresh, and he's going up against some AAF, and I think that's what it was, the American Association of Football, whatever. Some AAF guard. If this isn't a game where Cam Hayward wrecks the heck out of that game plan for the Browns, I don't know what is. I mean, this just doesn't happen. So, Tuitt has a much tougher assignment. Teller is good. And then also Bitonio, which side was he on? He was on the left side. So that's, that's Cam. That is Cam. Cam has to, we want to wreck it game. We want to wreck it, Ralph. That's Cam this game. Now let's go to offense. Bryan, who's your offensive X factor?
I'm going to go with the same guy I went with last week, and I think it's Chase Claypool. I think he could be that guy again with what he showed last week. Now, I know that the Browns will be looking his way because of what he did last week, but he could still be effective just for the fact that you've got Deontay, you've got possibly Juju if his knee's okay, you've got James Washington, that they can't you can't spend all of your time on Chase Claypool, so they're not going to be able to do that. I think that rookie wall that everybody was talking about, and even Mike Tomlin alluded to, I think that has been torn down because of the fact that Chase Claypool tore down the rookie wall for the way he played last week and said, "Hey guys, I'm fresh, I'm ready to go. Look my way, I can make it happen." He made it happen last week.
What about you, Dave?
Well, I was tempted to go really weird here again and say Denzel Ward because if he doesn't play, it's going to be very different.
Yes,
but Bryan would love that.
You could.
I'm not going to do that. The obvious one of another player coming back, I might leave that for Jeff if he wants that. So I'm going to go Alejandro Villanueva.
Good
pick. Because with Olivier Vernon being out, that pass rush is going to be coming from Myles Garrett. And didn't hear much from Myles Garrett last week, but he didn't play as much as I think he's going to play more this week, obviously, because he'll have to. So it's going to be up to Villanueva, or if they move Garrett around where he's matched up anywhere else, that whoever's lined up against him is going to be there. One of the most important things in that offense in order to give one Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger time to throw.
And that's my X factor, Mr. Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger, who's coming off of another week off. He should be fresh. He said it in his Wednesday media availability that he feels great, that his knees and his legs feel fresh. So for the week off really did him well, I think. I hope he comes out and doesn't show any signs of rust early, that he looks in sync with his receivers. He practiced on Wednesday, folks. Holy cow, Steeler Nation was celebrating in the streets as Benjamin Todd BTR practiced. I keep, every time I say BTR, I think BTO, like Bachman Turner Overdrive, but I digress. Ben is who this offense has always been about. If he plays well, they goes. But really interesting, Dave, do you have those stats about Ben in the playoffs in terms of yardage?
What do you mean that I laid out on Thursday morning Steeler Stat Geek? Is that what you're talking about?
That one. Yeah. Just real quick, because when he throws for over 300, it's not good.
No. The one that I thought was, I almost saved it for tonight's trivia, but I went way crazier with tonight's trivia.
Hey, wait. The podcast producer and me says, go back and listen to the stat.
Yeah, no. So I'm not going to tell you everything.
He dives really deep. I just wanted this one stat.
I dove deep, but I didn't bombard you like I did the week before trying to explain the playoff scenarios. That made my brain hurt thinking about it. But here's the crazy number. The Pittsburgh Steelers in 21 postseason games with Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger, have never won a game in which Ben Roethlisberger has thrown over 275 yards.
Yeesh.
They have never won a playoff game and where he's gone over 275. 275 is the highest he's gone in a win, and that was in the 2005 season AFC Championship game in Denver.
That was the game where he did that stupid gunslinger thing on the sideline. I hated that. It looked so cheesy. It was so bad. I hated it. Still do.
and the other numbers, never won a game throwing more than 33 passes. Never won a playoff game with more than 21 completions.
One of those is going down. One of those is going down.
I think so. At least one.
Yeah.
I said this on Stat Geeks. You really got to listen to it when I broke it down more.
Yeah,
this is a much different Steelers team. I also compared it with the rushing yards they had in those games as well. So it's a big thing. But when Ben goes nuts, it's in Steeler losses. In losses, he averages over 320 yards a game in the playoffs. In playoff losses, in playoff wins, he averages 206, and in playoff wins at home, he averages under 200.
Yeah. Gotta hope they run the football.
Yep.
Gotta hope they run the football. Okay, let's do some over-unders. I really cut this down because I wanted to be able to have plenty of time for trivia and then for our predictions and bold predictions at the end. So here we go. Over-under. Ben Roethlisberger touchdowns. The line set at 3. You take an over or under, Bryan?
I'm going to take the push. I'm getting 3. We're getting 3 out of Ben. Okay.
Dave?
Oh, baby.
Oh,
baby.
Ooh, a little soft.
Real good.
Push it real good. Sorry.
His microphone's going to fall soon.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to actually take the under. I'm going to take 2, but I don't want that to turn people away. I think it'll be okay. Rushing yards, Steelers rushing yards. The over-under line is at 80. Bryan?
I'm not going to say much here because it might be my bold prediction, but over.
Okay, Dave?
I'm going over as well. They had 85 last week, and if they're leading in this game, they will have more attempts than they did last week.
I think over as well. I think they actually go over the century mark in this game on Sunday. Now, how about the Cleveland Browns? They rushed for, I think, 190 last week in week 17, 192 maybe.
Chubb himself had one. Yeah, you're right. There's 192 as a team.
Yeah. 125, the Cleveland Browns rushing yards, over under, Bryan?
I'm going to say slightly over, but not by much.
Okay. Dave?
I am going to say slightly over as well. I think you set that at a really good spot because, as we know, rushing yards a lot of time depends on how the game plays out, and how I want the game to play out in my mind is where they might get rushing yards early, but they might not be able to have a chance to stick with that.
All right, very good. And then last one, sacks on Mr. Mayfield. The line is set at 3.5. Bryan Anthony Davis, what do you think?
I got to go over. Look, the Steelers got 4 last week, and against a better offensive line, you've got some sack masters back. I think TJ's hungry. He got a sack title for the NFL. That's great. He didn't get the team record, but he still has some business to take care of. And he's just thinking about a Super Bowl, but this helps him win Defensive Player of the Year. I know he's not all about that, but I just really think that this is a perfect recipe for a signature game for one Trent Jordan Watt.
Trent Jordan. All right, Dave, what do you think? 3.5 over under.
Oh, that you should have you could have put that at 5.5 and not a 7.
No, see, I'm smarter about this than you think.
And here's
when we think they're going to get a ton, they typically don't.
But this is the team they just played last week. And now they're down their best offensive lineman, and the Steelers get their 2 best players along the defensive front back. And last week they had 4. If they don't get at least 4, then there's a problem. The only way they don't get that is if Cleveland's running the ball so much they never have a chance to pass. They're never passing, And I don't think that's how the game's going to play out, if you know what I mean.
I think it's over. I think it's over. I think this is a game where they are going to they're going to get after Mayfield. Even though I think early they might not get to him, late they will. Last one, sacks on BTR. We'll set it at 1.5. Over under, Bryan.
I'm just going to say over, but 2.
Okay.
So not by much.
Dave?
That's what I was going to say. So I'm going to change my answer because I don't want to be like Bryan every time. I'm going to go under because I'm hoping that they just don't have as many pass attempts. Part of me was just going to say over because I want to see Ben holding the ball longer to push it downfield, which means you could take the sacks more than normal. But I don't know that that's going to have to happen that often. So let's go under 1.
I'm going to say under as well, maybe 1. When you don't have Vernon on the other side of Garrett, you really are going to be able to put a lot of pressure on Garrett. I think that they'll be fine. I could actually see him not getting touched at all or sacked at all in this game. All right, let's go to trivia. Do you want to do trivia now or after predictions, Dave?
I'm going to do trivia now.
Let's do it now.
My trivia isn't playoff oriented. It's not because, honestly, you want to know the truth? I started to look up something that was taking forever to look up in order to put in the Steelers Vertex article that I do with Jeffrey. Then I had a household emergency and I had to stop. And I did not have a chance to do it before the article came out, so I didn't include it. So I'm like, I'll do it as trivia with these guys. And what I was looking up was how the Steelers did something this season that no other team had done. Not only did they have 3 wide receivers that didn't even have to be wide receivers, 3 players that had over 800 yards receiving. They had 5 players with 5 or more receiving touchdowns. So the question that I wanted to ask was, has anybody done this before? So I had to go back and spend a lot of time digging through, had to go under each franchise and go year by year to see if they had enough. And I found it. I found the answer. This is the 7th time in NFL history that it has happened. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys the year and see if you can figure out who the team was that had 5 players that had 5 or more receiving touchdowns. You guys think you could do it?
We'll give it a shot.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like that.
In 2011, 2 different teams did it. 2 different teams had 5 players with 5 touchdowns or more receiving. So you got to think of people that are chucking the rock.
New Orleans Saints, maybe?
New Orleans Saints is one. Drew Brees, where it was Colston, Graham, Meacham, Moore, and Sproles.
I'm going to go the Patriots.
That was one I really dove into a lot, and it was not the New England Patriots. But I'm going to give you guys one free wrong answer.
Is it the Colts?
It was in 2011. It was not the Colts.
Okay. Well, I already got the Saints right. What are we doing?
Are you ready?
Okay, so let me just
Brian,
throw out the Packers.
What's that?
Packers.
You are
Bay.
correct. That was the other team. It was the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers throwing to Driver, Finley, Jennings, James, and Nelson. Now, there was another one between 2011 and this year, but I'm going to hold that one for a specific reason. Okay. If you go back from 2011, then it was 2004. You guys probably can guess who it was in 2004 because it was a team you've already mentioned.
Oh, I mean, New England?
And it's not New England.
Oh, gosh.
Is it Indianapolis?
It was Indianapolis. It was Peyton Manning throwing to Clark, Harrison, Pollard, Stokely, and Wayne.
Oh, he had 1 million touchdowns that year, too. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, and that's think about it. If it's someone you're throwing a bunch of touchdowns to, chances are you're not getting 5 to that many different people. Then to go back slightly before that, 1999. I think this one should be an easy one.
Prince, 1999.
2000 party's over.
I'm going to stick with Prince, and I'm going to say the Minnesota Vikings because that was their very big year. That was a very big year for them. I would say Randy Moss, Nate Burleson, those guys.
That is not correct. Jeff could probably get the answer in the live chat if you wanted it because they know it.
The Rams?
It is the greatest show on turf.
Yeah, I should have known that.
With Bruce, Falk, Hakeem, Holt, Williams, they won the Super Bowl that year. Mm-hmm. So that's a team that won the Super Bowl doing it. There's 2 other ones. One of them's crazy. I've got to throw this out there because I'd be shocked if you get this. Before 1999, the only time it was ever done was 1963, pre-Super Bowl. Any idea?
Chargers.
Dick Shiner.
How about Y.A. Tittle? It was the New York Giants with Frank Gifford.
Wow.
Oh, Frank Gifford.
The crazy one, all these teams, they made the postseason. Many of them won multiple games. They had the Rams going to and winning the Super Bowl. The Giants, they only played one championship game and they lost that one to the Bears in 63. But there was one team that did it in 2018 that completely breaks the mold. They don't have there wasn't a future Hall of Fame quarterback, and it wasn't even a team with a winning record.
2019?
2018. And they did face the Pittsburgh Steelers.
They did?
A game that won both Bryan and myself a lot of money.
Oh, okay. I know the answer to
Go
this.
ahead. Say it.
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay. In 2018, with two different quarterbacks, Fitzpatrick and Jameis Winston, had 5 players catch 5 touchdowns in the season. So I thought the Steelers had done something that hadn't been done for a long time, like 2011. And then I stumble across this 2018 trash, and I was just like, whatever. So that's the one that broke the mold. They weren't a very good team. They didn't have a Hall of Fame quarterback. That's the only time that's happened, that it wasn't a playoff team with a Hall of Fame quarterback. So just throwing it out there for fun because I did all the work for it and I couldn't use it anywhere else.
Oh, there you go.
Really nice. I've got a quickie, Jeff. Quick trivia question that has a lot to do with the wild card game.
Okie dokie.
So the last 2 times that the Browns were in the playoffs, they played the Pittsburgh Steelers, as we know. Both in Pittsburgh. Who were the head coaches for the Browns?
Well, I know Butch Davis was in 2002. What year was it before that?
1994.
Yeah.
Oh, Belichick?
Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Yay.
Didn't even give me a chance.
I knew Butch Davis because I
Belichick. I didn't know the
Did you read the article.
I did the article today, so that's I knew Butch. Well, and I also saw Keith Butler today. He was on the Browns coaching staff in 2002.
Wow.
And he was ripping Butch Davis apart because he fired the defensive coordinator. I think it was the defensive coordinator after the game. He said because he said he did everything he wanted him to do, and he gets fired for it. He said he thought it was a raw deal. So interesting quotes from Keith Butler today on Thursday during his media session. So, all right, let's get to the most important part of the show. That's our prediction part of the show. Dave, what's the spread currently and the over-under?
Okay, the spread and the over-under, I checked them a couple hours ago. I'm just going to double-check to make sure they hadn't changed. That the consensus is still that the Pittsburgh Steelers are favored by 6 points, and the over-under is still 47.5.
Okay. Bryan Anthony Davis, what's your prediction?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and, the Browns, that's 6 is too much for this game, as far as I'm concerned. I don't care about everybody that they're losing. I still think the Browns are going to lose this game. I thought the Browns were going to lose this game even before we found out that Kevin Stefanski was out. I think 6 is still a lot. So I'm looking in this game, and I'm going to go one of my weird BAD scores. I'm going to say Steelers 29, Browns 24.
Okay. That was the final of a game not too long ago, wasn't it? Anyways, I don't know. Dave, go ahead. Prediction. What is it?
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you now what it comes down to. When you look at these over-under scores, and that's what I keep thinking. And trust me, I'm not that great at picking over-under scores. I am better than I am against the spread. All you have to do is go look at our staff prediction articles. But what it takes to go over is both teams scoring points. Just because you have one team that scores a bunch of points does not mean that the spread's going to go over. You need both teams scoring points. So that's what I was looking at here. And I'm more jacked up with the Steelers defense coming out and taking care of business than I am the Steelers offense. I really am. I'm the only thing that's bothering me is the whole Joe Hayden thing, but it wasn't like that stood out a bunch in week 17. So that's why I don't feel nearly as bad about it. Therefore, I'm actually going to give the Browns more points than I was planning on giving them. And I'm going to say with a final score where it's going to go under because it's going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers 27, the Cleveland Browns 10.
Okay. I think that the Browns are going to score some points at some point. I don't think they're going to score a lot of points. I think this is a Steelers team that can really make a statement here, not just against Cleveland, not even in the playoffs, not to the fans, to themselves, that the Steelers are actually a team that's going to be a tough out in the postseason. Because let's be honest, they've lost 4 of their last 5. The month of December was not kind to them. Everyone thought they looked like trash. I think they rebound. I think the week off gave those players that did get the week off, I think it gives them an edge. I like the Steelers to actually win this one handily. I like the Steelers 31-17, and that is barely over. With 47.5 is the line. My score 48 is over. So barely over. I like 31-17. I think that, if Boswell's kicking and he's healthy, I think the Steelers is going to play right into their hands, to be honest with you. So there you go. There's our predictions. There's our picks. People are firing away in the live chat. I like that. Let's go with our
Jeff,
bold. Yeah. What?
Can I do one thing real quick?
Sure.
So something happened on Tuesday night when this Go Bro show. I was very disappointed. Uh-oh. We had someone leave a super chat. They must have been watching on delay. It was 5 minutes after the whole thing was done. It was a $10 super chat from Crazy Blue 223, which really appreciated. I just wanted to read it tonight, if that's okay. Sure. And it said, "Do you think it's possible?" He says, "Do you think it's possible we dumb down our playbook later in the season to keep teams from having film for postseason, or is that far fetched?"
I don't think it's far fetched. I just don't think it's likely.
Okay.
The Steelers were in a bad place. Now, do they maybe have some pages of their playbook that they haven't really gotten into? They're saving those for maybe certain opponents or for whatever. Yeah, that might be the case. I don't think they've dumbed down the playbook, though. Brian, what do you think?
No, I don't think they do. I think I just don't think that's a Mike Tomlin thing either. I think you do what you do well, and when you're struggling, then you're struggling not because you're holding anything back. You're just struggling.
Dave?
Yeah, I think it's not that extreme. It's what Jeff said. You might have certain things that you're saving for certain situations against certain teams, but it's not like you're specifically saying, well, let's not show this or let's not show that to that level. You do it maybe slightly, but not. I mean, you definitely in week 17, in my opinion. Because the last thing you wanted to do was really show anything, knowing that there was a good chance you were going to face the Browns. But I don't think they've been doing that for that long.
All right. That's thank you for the tip. Whoever gave that, appreciate that. Let's go to our bold predictions, and then we'll do our final thoughts. So, Brian, what's your bold prediction that doesn't have to do with Bougie Smith-Schuster this week?
Okay, a man in a Kylo Ren. Oh, sorry, I can't do that. But if you read the article, I will. I was gonna go the James Conner direction. I just don't want to do that. I don't want to. I saw Dave's finger up. I thought he was. He was.
No, I was pointing at the helmet up behind me.
Oh, yeah. There you go. So I'm thinking of my X factor in this game, and I'm thinking of Britney Spears.
Oh, God.
So I'm going to do this with a little bit of song.
I thought maybe it was John Oates he was talking about.
Oh,
don't bring up the Oates debacle of 2017.
Oops, I did it again. I picked off Mayfield. My name is Minka, and I took it for 6. There you go, baby. I'm here all week. I would say mic drop, but I already did that before the show.
Oh my gosh. So you're predicting a Minka Fitzpatrick pick 6. It would be a second against Mayfield. Okay. I like it. Dave, what's your bold prediction? Are you singing for us, or is this just going to be a standard answer?
No, this is I don't know if it's a standard answer, but no. I'm sorry. I got to leave that to Brian. He's the one that let's just say this. Bryan knows he can't sing, so when people tell him he can't sing, he doesn't care. I don't want to hear the criticism. So
hey, I got one of these. No, he just didn't.
All right. You ready? Bold prediction. I'm sorry. Why do you keep bringing up these live chats?
I didn't do that.
Why you look like someone's Aunt Doris? I love that. Okay,
Aunt Doris is hot. Then I'm telling you that.
Yeah, it's not someone I want to meet at 2 a.m. Okay, here we go. Sorry. Do I say this now? Do I have to?
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Okay. Getting bent with Bo, give us $2 in the tip jar. He says we let them in and now we knocked them out. Book it.
I like it.
Okay.
I like it a lot. Thanks, Bo.
That's a good one. All right. Bold prediction. Steelers get 8+ sacks, not led by one Thomas Trent.
Trent Jordan.
Thomas Trent. What am I saying? Trent Jordan. What?
TJ Dubs.
I'm not saying that he's not going to get any. I'm just saying that somebody else is going to have more.
Okay.
Because they're going to pay so much attention to TJ.
I'm going to say that my bold prediction, because Dave brought up those stats and I listened to his Stat Geek this morning. I think that Ben is going to throw for over 300. I think he's going to throw for over 30 passes, and I think they're going to win the game. And so I think a lot of those, some of the statistical background of Ben's history is going to fall down. I think it's a good thing. So I think that's my bold prediction for this week. I'm really scared to ask Bryan about his final thoughts. I'm ashamed that I'm not ashamed. I'm embarrassed if he's going to start singing again. But Brittany, go ahead and take it away.
You love that, Jeff, and you know it. And Hass H, I just got to tell you this. That's why my wife won't let me get a mustache. And thank you for telling me I've got a stupid haircut. I do appreciate that. But I have a fantasy football trophy that we pass around, and it's been going on for years. And for years, the winner in 2013 was one Bryan Anthony Davis, and the team name was Ron Jeremy is my dad. And that was the name. That was the name of my team. So there you go. So my final thoughts. This has been a crazy season. It's not over by any stretch of the imagination. I like the way the Steelers showed up last week in that game with nothing to gain, but everything to gain with a good showing. And they gained that. Mason Rudolph gained a lot of things. Chase Claypool, Alex Highsmith, those guys gained a lot of things. And the Steelers' team gained something called momentum. So the Momo is on this team. You get BTR back. Yes, Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger. You can't spell butter without BTR. You can't spell better without BTR. And that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a whole lot of butter, which means butter is good. You put a lot of butter on your popcorn, it's awesome. You're going to get the butter this week, and the Steelers are going to get better. And I can't wait to be talking about the Steelers going to the second round with lots of buttery fingers and not dropping the ball, but the taste of winning.
All right, TT Watt, take it away.
Oh, I gotta love. I don't know where Thomas came from. That was crazy.
Trent Thomas.
I will. No, I think I said Thomas Trent. I don't even know. It doesn't matter.
Terwilliger, Tiberius.
At the request, I will do this. At the
Ray
request.
McDonald.
He was Ray McDonald. At the request of the live chat, I will bust into song for my final thoughts.
Ooh,
and I will give our own personal rendition of the hit by the presidents of the United States. Cleveland sucks. Cleveland sucks. Cleveland sucks. Cleveland sucks. Mayfield sucks. Cleveland. Sorry. Yeah. I just take care of the Browns. I don't want to have to come back on a post-game show. I'm like, how did you let this team win? Whatever. The Steelers, I know I still have some concerns with the offense. I wish we would have seen more. We did see it in the second half against the Colts, but really we have to remember the heart and soul of this team is that Steelers defense. Go out there, shut them down, take care of business. Defense wins championships.
My final thoughts are it's going to be freaking killer waiting till Sunday night for the Steelers to play. Like, that's going to be really tough. Like, waiting all day Saturday and then all day Sunday is going to be tough. But as a kid, I remember I couldn't wait when the Steelers made the playoffs. I always loved is when the newest rendition of the Here We Go song came out. and they would play it on the radio. Here we go. Bum, here we go. And they have all those new names and stuff. I still sing the one that I grew up with. Cower power, we'll get the job done. Then we'll win that one for the thumb. Here we go. That's the one I always sing. Like my kids walk around the house and we play the new ones and stuff, and it just doesn't sound the same. But I always look forward to the playoffs. I love the playoffs. My dad's going to get to break out his terrible towel for the first time since 2017 that he only gets out for the playoffs. He doesn't get it at any other time. It's just fun. It's fun. Enjoy it. Don't take anything for granted. Obviously, no one would have ever guessed that after 2017, we wouldn't be here until 2020, meaning a postseason game. So enjoy it. I hope that you continue to check out BehindTheSteelCurtain.com and our audio platform, wherever you get your podcasts, search Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain. And hopefully we're back next week previewing a divisional round playoff game. For Bryan and Dave, why don't you just send us the heck out of here?
Hey.
Best way to end it. We'll see you next week. Win, lose, or draw. Take it easy.